No leg, no hope. Then the human medic forged a weaponized new flesh and steel revolt. The planet was quiet, almost too quiet. The battle had ended hours ago, but the air still felt thick with tension. Eli stood near the wreckage of their damaged ship, staring out at the horizon. His hands were covered in blood, his mind racing with thoughts of what he had just done. He had never imagined that his medical skills would lead him here to this point, creating something that was no longer entirely human. But there was no going back now. Eli looked at the soldier, who was lying on the ground, unconscious but breathing. The soldier had been a hero once, before the alien attack had left him broken and near death. But now, with a part of him missing, Eli wasn't sure who he was anymore. He was just a man with a broken body and a shattered spirit, lying on the ground in front of him. The alien forces had come out of nowhere, striking fast and without warning. Their weapons were unlike anything humanity had ever seen, powerful, deadly, and efficient. The human soldiers had fought bravely, but they were no match for the alien technology. Eli had watched as the soldiers fell, one by one, their bodies torn apart by the alien weapons. And then it was his turn to help. He had always been a medic, trained to heal, to save lives. But there was no saving the soldier's leg. The alien's attack had torn it apart, leaving nothing but a mangled mess of bone and flesh. There had been no choice. Eli had to act. He had to do something to save the soldier. And so he had done what no one else would have dared. Eli had taken the parts he needed from the wreckage of their ship, using alien technology to create a new leg, one that could replace the soldier's lost limb. It was a risk, but there was no other option. He couldn't just watch the soldier die. Not after everything they had been through. The soldier stirred, his eyes slowly opening. Eli rushed to his side, his heart racing. He had no idea how the soldier would react to the new leg. Would he be able to accept it, or would the change be too much for him to handle? The soldier blinked, his eyes focusing on Eli. What happened? His voice was hoarse, his body shaking with pain. You were injured, Eli said softly. I had to. The soldier's gaze drifted down to where his leg had once been, and his face twisted in confusion. My leg, it's gone. His voice was barely a whisper. I had to replace it, Eli explained, trying to keep his voice steady. It's a new leg. I used parts from the ship. It's functional, but it's different. The soldier didn't respond immediately. He stared at his new leg, his fingers brushing against the cold metal surface. He seemed to be processing what Eli had just said, trying to make sense of it. I'm not sure I can, the soldier trailed off, his voice heavy with uncertainty. He looked up at Eli, his eyes filled with doubt. What am I now? Eli didn't have an answer. He had given the soldier a new chance at life, but at what cost? The soldier was no longer entirely human. He was a mixture of flesh and metal, a product of desperation and fear. Eli had hoped that this would give the soldier the strength to survive, but he didn't know if it would be enough. He didn't know if it would be enough for the soldier to feel like himself again. The soldier slowly sat up, testing the new leg. At first, it didn't move as he expected. It was stiff, unnatural, but it was functional. With a grunt, he stood up, taking a few tentative steps. The metal leg clicked with each movement, a sharp contrast to the soft, rhythmic steps he had once taken. It was awkward, but it worked. The soldier turned to Eli, his face hard. I don't know how I feel about this, he said, his voice full of conflict. Eli nodded. He didn't know how to make this easier for the soldier. I didn't want to do this. I didn't have a choice. You were going to die without it. The soldier didn't respond. He looked down at his leg again, as if trying to come to terms with what had happened. It wasn't just a prosthetic. It wasn't just a replacement. It was a reminder of everything he had lost and everything he had become. I'm not sure I want to be this, the soldier said softly, almost to himself. Eli's heart tightened. He knew exactly what the soldier meant. This wasn't just about a missing limb. It was about the price of survival, the cost of what they were becoming in this war. They weren't just fighting to stay alive anymore. They were fighting to hold on to their humanity, to stay true to who they were in the face of the horrors they had endured. The soldier's new leg was a symbol of that struggle. The silence between them stretched on. Eli wanted to say something comforting, something that would make the soldier feel better. But there were no words for this. There were no easy answers. All he could offer was his support and hope that somehow the soldier would find a way to accept what had happened. I'll help you, Eli said finally. We'll get through this together. You don't have to do this alone. The soldier didn't answer, but Eli could see the slightest flicker of gratitude in his eyes. It wasn't much, but it was enough. The two of them stood there, side by side in the midst of the wreckage. The soldier looked out at the horizon, his gaze distant. He wasn't sure what the future held. He wasn't sure what kind of man he would be now with a mechanical leg and a heart full of doubt. But he knew one thing: he wasn't done fighting, not yet. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. "Let's go. We have a war to win." Eli nodded, watching the soldier take his first few steps on his new leg. The path ahead was uncertain, but they were both still standing. They were both still fighting. And that was all they could do. The transformation was a delicate and painful process. As the soldier lay on the operating table, Eli prepared for what was about to come. He glanced over at the soldier, who was now fully awake, his eyes filled with a mix of fear and hope. The atmosphere in the small makeshift lab was tense, filled only with the quiet hum of medical equipment and the occasional crackle of the damaged radio in the corner. "I'm ready," the soldier said, his voice rough but determined. It had been a week since the battle that had left him crippled, and with each passing day, his resolve to fight again grew stronger. But he had also become more aware of the cost of his recovery. Eli looked at him not just as a patient, but as someone who was about to cross a line that could never be uncrossed. He could see the fear in the soldier's eyes, the fear of becoming something unrecognizable. He could understand that fear. It was a fear of losing everything that made him human. But Eli knew that without this change, the soldier wouldn't survive the war. And if the war continued the way it had, neither would humanity. The first step was to clean and prep the wound where the leg had been. The alien attack had torn through the soldier's leg with brutal force, leaving only a mangled mess of flesh and bone. Eli worked quickly, using a scalpel to remove the remaining pieces of damaged tissue, preparing the stump for the mechanical limb that would soon take its place. As Eli worked, the soldier tensed with every cut, but he said nothing. The medic had assured him that the pain would be manageable, but that didn't make it any easier. It was hard to focus on anything else when the thought of becoming part machine weighed on his mind. What would that do to him? Would he still be the same person after this? Would he even care about the same things? Or would he lose everything? Eli glanced up from his work, reading the soldier's expression. "You're going to be okay. I know it doesn't seem like it right now, but you're doing the right thing." The soldier nodded, though his eyes remained distant. He wasn't sure if he believed Eli, but he didn't have any other choice. Once the preparation was complete, Eli turned to the medical equipment he had scavenged from their ship. The technology he was using was experimental, blending human science with alien tech. The leg itself was an intricate piece of machinery, capable of not only replacing the missing limb but enhancing it. Eli had spent days modifying it, ensuring it would bond with the soldier's body, not just as a prosthetic, but as an extension of him. A tool that would help him survive. With precision, Eli connected the mechanical leg to the soldier's stump. The process was slow, painful, but necessary. Eli could hear the soldier's breath grow heavier as the machinery clicked into place, the metal making faint mechanical sounds as it adjusted to the soldier's body. But then, something unexpected happened. The soldier's body jerked, and Eli froze. It was only for a second, but it was enough to make Eli pause in his work. The soldier gasped in pain, his hands gripping the sides of the table. Eli immediately reached for the soldier's arm, trying to steady him. "Hold on just a little longer," Eli urged, his voice firm but gentle. The soldier squeezed his eyes shut, gritting his teeth against the pain. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he fought to stay still, to not scream out. The pain was unlike anything he had ever experienced before. It felt like fire running through his veins, burning and spreading with each passing second. Eli worked as quickly as he could, trying to complete the procedure before the soldier's body rejected the limb. The alien technology was complicated, and there were no guarantees it would work. But Eli wasn't about to give up, not after everything they had been through. The soldier's breathing slowed, and his grip on the table loosened. Eli gave a small sigh of relief, but he knew it wasn't over yet. The hardest part was still to come, the neural integration. This part of the process would take time. The soldier's nervous system had to adapt to the alien tech, to allow the mechanical leg to communicate with his brain. It was a delicate dance of bioengineering and human biology, and there was a real risk that the soldier's body might not accept it. Eli checked the monitors carefully, watching for any signs of rejection. His heart raced as he waited, his hands never leaving the soldier's side. And then slowly, almost imperceptibly, the soldier moved his foot. His toes twitched, then wiggled. Eli blinked in disbelief. It worked. The connection was forming. The soldier lifted his leg slightly, testing the weight of the mechanical limb. At first it was stiff, but then the leg shifted, responding to his movement. The soldier's face twisted in discomfort, but there was something else there too. Something deeper. He was starting to realize that this wasn't just a replacement for what he had lost. It was something more. It was a new form of strength. For the first time in days, the soldier felt something that resembled hope. Eli stepped back, watching the soldier as he tested his new leg, taking slow, cautious steps. The soldier was unsteady at first, but with each movement, his confidence grew. Eli could see it in his eyes. The soldier was beginning to understand the power he now held. But as the soldier took another step, Eli couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. They had just created a weapon, and they had no idea how it would affect the soldier or the rest of humanity. Would this new strength be enough to win the war? Or would it tear them apart from the inside? Only time would tell. Eli watched as the soldier took another step, his mechanical leg clicking against the floor. There was no turning back now. The soldier was a new man, and the world around them would never be the same. The soldiers gathered outside the makeshift base, their eyes focused on the horizon. It was early morning, and the light from the distant sun cast long shadows across the rocky landscape. The air was still, filled with an eerie silence that only added to the tension. The human resistance had been fighting for years, losing ground steadily to the alien forces. The world was beginning to lose hope. But there was something different today, something the soldiers could feel in their bones. At the center of it all stood the soldier, now a symbol of humanity's defiance. He tested his new leg again, the mechanical limb moving smoothly beneath him. His movements were still stiff, but with every step his confidence grew. The leg had become a part of him, a powerful tool that would help him survive the battles ahead. Behind him stood Eli, watching carefully. The medic had never seen a man change so quickly. The soldier, once broken and helpless, was now becoming a force to be reckoned with. It was strange, seeing him transform into something more than human. Eli knew this was only the beginning, but it was hard to ignore the weight of what he had created. The soldier wasn't just a survivor anymore, he was a weapon. "Are you ready?" Eli asked, his voice calm but filled with uncertainty. The soldier nodded. His eyes were hard, focused on the task ahead. "Let's do it." The plan was simple. Infiltrate the alien base, disable their communications, and strike back before they could retaliate. It was risky, but they had no other choice. The aliens had been dominating the human forces for too long. Every time the humans tried to fight back, they were crushed under the weight of the alien technology. But now, the soldier had something that the aliens couldn't anticipate, his enhanced abilities. As the soldier and Eli approached the entrance to the base, they could feel the tension rising. They had to move quickly and quietly. The soldier's new leg helped him move with speed and precision. He was faster than any normal human would be, but he had to be careful. There was still a chance that the alien security systems would detect his presence. Eli carried a small pack of supplies, his hands shaking slightly. This mission was more than just another attempt to win the war. It felt like a turning point. If they succeeded, it would show the resistance that there was hope. If they failed, the consequences would be dire. They reached the entrance of the base, a large steel door that looked imposing but was relatively simple to breach. Eli checked his watch, noting the time. They had only a short window before the alien patrols passed by. He handed the soldier a small tool, one that could disable the door's locking mechanism. The soldier worked quickly, his mechanical fingers moving with precision. He was still adjusting to the new strength of his limbs, but he felt a strange sense of pride as the door clicked open. They had made it inside. The interior of the base was a stark contrast to the outside world. The walls were smooth and cold, made of metal that reflected the dim light of the alien lamps. The air inside smelled sterile, almost clinical. Eli felt a chill run down his spine. He hated this place, hated the feeling of being so close to the enemy, but they had no choice. They had to press on. The soldier led the way, moving silently through the hallways. Eli followed closely, his heart pounding in his chest. Every footstep felt too loud, too noticeable, but somehow they managed to avoid detection. As they moved deeper into the base, the soldier's enhanced abilities made a huge difference. He was able to move faster and more efficiently than Eli had ever hoped for. The alien patrols were no match for him. Finally, they reached the central chamber. This was the heart of the base where the aliens controlled everything. The soldier paused at the entrance, taking a deep breath. This was it, the moment that could change everything. Eli glanced at him, nodding in silent understanding. "We're almost there," he whispered. The soldier turned to face him, his expression hard but determined. "Let's finish this." They stepped into the chamber. The room was large, filled with alien consoles and communication equipment. Eli's eyes scanned the area quickly. They needed to disable the communications first. If they could cut off the alien forces' ability to call for reinforcements, they would have a fighting chance. The soldier moved forward, his mechanical leg giving him the strength to navigate the room swiftly. He reached one of the consoles, using his enhanced senses to locate the main power source. Eli was right behind him, keeping watch for any signs of the aliens. The soldier worked quickly, his hands moving with precision. His mechanical leg gave him the agility he needed to reach the console and disconnect the power supply. There was a faint hum as the system powered down, and then silence. The communications were offline. "Done," the soldier said, his voice steady. He looked at Eli, a small, satisfied smile on his face. "We've taken their lifeline." But just as they were about to leave, the sound of footsteps echoed down the hallway. Eli's heart sank. They had been discovered. The soldier turned to face him, his eyes steely. "We need to get out now." They moved quickly, but the hallway was long, and the alien forces were closing in. The soldier used his new abilities to push himself harder, running faster than Eli could keep up with. His mechanical legs seemed to almost carry him, moving with a fluidity that was both unnatural and awe-inspiring. He was a weapon in motion, a force of nature. Eli struggled to keep up, but he couldn't match the soldier's speed. He heard the sound of blaster fire behind him and turned to see one of the alien patrols closing in. They had to make it to the exit. The soldier was the only one who could do it. With a burst of energy, the soldier turned and sprinted back toward Eli. He reached out, grabbing him by the arm and pulling him forward. "Come on," he shouted. They ran together, the soldier's enhanced abilities making all the difference. They reached the exit just as the alien forces opened fire. The soldier led the way, shielding Eli with his body. The last thing Eli saw before they escaped into the wilderness was the soldier, standing tall and resolute, his mechanical leg carrying him with the strength of 1,000 men. The victory was short-lived. Despite the success of their mission, Eli couldn't shake the feeling of unease that clung to him like a shadow. The soldier, now fully enhanced with his new mechanical leg, was becoming something different, a force of nature. It was no longer just about survival, it was about the power they had unlocked. And with that power came a new responsibility, a responsibility that neither of them fully understood. As they made their way back to the base, Eli couldn't help but notice how the other soldiers looked at the soldier. There was admiration, yes, but there was also fear, fear of what he had become. Fear that somewhere deep inside, the man they once knew was starting to fade, replaced by a machine. Eli had created this new being, and now he wondered whether it was worth it. Was this what humanity needed? Or had he gone too far, crossing a line that should never have been crossed? The soldier, on the other hand, seemed to be embracing his transformation. He walked with a newfound confidence, his movements fluid and powerful. The mechanical leg, once an experiment, was now a tool of unmatched strength. He could feel the power coursing through him with every step. It was exhilarating, like nothing he had ever experienced before. The feeling of invincibility was hard to ignore. But as they returned to camp, the soldier began to notice something he hadn't expected. The fear in the eyes of his comrades, the whispered conversations when he wasn't around, the subtle glances that suggested they no longer saw him as one of them. He had become something else, something beyond human. Eli noticed it too. The resistance forces were beginning to view the soldier as a weapon, not a man. They treated him with respect, but it was a cold, calculated respect. They saw his potential, but they also feared what he might become if they lost control over him. "Eli," the soldier said one evening, his voice low. They were sitting around a campfire, the rest of the soldiers eating and talking in the background. The soldier's eyes were distant, his thoughts clearly somewhere else. "Do they see me as a monster?" Eli looked at him, his heart heavy. He had been avoiding this conversation, afraid of what it might mean. But now, seeing the doubt in the soldier's eyes, he couldn't ignore it anymore. "They see you as a hero," Eli replied slowly. "But they also see the change in you. They don't understand it, and they're scared of what it means." The soldier looked down at his new leg, his expression unreadable. "I don't know what I am anymore," he said quietly. "I'm not sure I even know who I am." Eli wanted to reassure him, but the truth was he didn't know what to say. He had created this new version of the soldier, and now it was up to the soldier to figure out what it meant to be human in a body that was no longer entirely human. It was a question that haunted Eli just as much as it haunted the soldier. Over the next few days, the tension within the camp only grew. The soldier, once a hero to his fellow men, began to feel increasingly isolated. He was different, and they made sure to remind him of it, even if it wasn't spoken aloud. There were moments when the soldier could see it in their eyes, the wariness, the uncertainty. They didn't want to treat him like an outsider, but they didn't know how to handle him anymore. Eli, too, was struggling. He had created this weapon to fight for humanity, but now he wondered if he had doomed them all. What if the soldier became more machine than man? What if the very thing that made him so powerful also made him dangerous? What if, in the end, he lost himself completely? The soldier tried to keep moving forward to stay focused on the mission, but it was getting harder. Every battle felt more like a test of his humanity. Every victory, a reminder that he was losing pieces of himself along the way. And then came the betrayal. It happened in the dead of night while the rest of the camp was sleeping. The soldier had just finished a training session, his body tired but alert, when Eli found him outside the camp. The medic was out of breath, his face pale with concern. "There's something you need to know," Eli said, his voice urgent. "There's a faction within the resistance. They don't want you to keep fighting. They think you're a liability." The soldier frowned, his heart sinking. "A liability?" he repeated. "Why?" "They're afraid of what you've become," Eli explained, his voice quiet but firm. "They think you're losing yourself. They think that the more you fight, the less you'll be human, and that's a risk they're not willing to take." The soldier felt a surge of anger rise within him. "So what? They want to get rid of me? After everything we've done?" Eli hesitated. "They want to control you. They want to make sure you're not a threat, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to make that happen." The soldier's fists clenched. He had given everything for this fight. He had sacrificed his humanity for the greater good, and now they were questioning him, doubting him. The very people he had fought to protect were the ones trying to take him down. "You can't let them do this," Eli urged, his voice shaking. "You have to fight not just for the war, but for yourself, for who you are." The soldier stood there, torn. The anger inside him bubbled up, but so did the doubt. Was this what it had come to? Was he still the man he used to be, or was he just a weapon, a tool to be used and discarded? "I can't go back," the soldier said quietly. "Not to what I was, but I can't be this thing they want me to be either." Eli nodded, understanding. "Then you have to decide who you want to be." The soldier looked out at the camp, his eyes hard. "I'll decide, but they won't control me." With that, the soldier turned and walked back into the camp, his new leg clicking against the ground with each step. Eli watched him go, unsure of what would come next, but certain of one thing: whatever path the soldier chose, it would be one he walked alone. The day of the final battle had arrived. The air was thick with tension as the human resistance gathered their forces. There was a sense of finality in the air, as if this battle would determine everything. The soldier stood at the front, his enhanced body gleaming under the harsh light of the alien planet's twin suns. His mechanical leg hummed with energy, a silent reminder of the cost of this war and what he had become. Eli stood beside him, watching his creation, his friend. The soldier wasn't the same man Eli had once known. He had become something else, something more powerful, but also something more distant. Eli couldn't help but feel responsible for what had happened. The soldier's transformation had been necessary, but it had come with a heavy price. Eli wasn't sure if the man still existed under all the metal and flesh, or if the war had taken that part away for good. The soldiers around them were preparing, checking their gear, talking in hushed voices. But the soldier stood still, his gaze focused on the horizon. There was no fear in his eyes. Instead, there was a cold resolve. He had been through too much to be afraid now. The alien forces were closing in, and the time for hesitation was over. This would be the turning point. "Are you ready?" Eli asked quietly, trying to keep his voice steady. The soldier didn't turn to look at him, but his answer came in the form of a single nod. The decision had already been made. There was no turning back. "Let's finish this," the soldier said, his voice low but filled with determination. The resistance forces moved into position and the battle began. The soldier led the charge, moving faster than any human could. His mechanical leg carried him effortlessly across the battlefield, and his enhanced strength allowed him to take down alien soldiers with ease. Eli followed behind, watching in awe as the soldier fought. He was more than a soldier now. He was a living weapon, unstoppable and relentless. The alien forces fought back with everything they had. Their advanced technology was powerful, but it was no match for the soldier's speed and strength. The soldier tore through their ranks, taking down one enemy after another. But even as the battle raged on, Eli could see the toll it was taking on him. The soldier was becoming more mechanical with each passing minute, his movements more precise, but also less human. The more he fought, the more he seemed to lose himself. As the battle continued, the soldier's mind began to drift. He was no longer just a man fighting for survival. He was a weapon, a tool of war, and the line between the two was becoming harder to distinguish. Eli could see the struggle in his eyes, the conflict between the man he had once known and the machine he had become. The soldier's body moved without hesitation, but inside, Eli knew he was questioning everything. "Focus," Eli said, his voice sharp. He reached out, grabbing the soldier's arm. "You can't lose yourself, not now." The soldier's eyes locked with Eli's, and for a moment there was a flicker of recognition, a reminder of the man he had once been. The soldier nodded once and then turned back to the battle. He wasn't done yet. He couldn't be. The final push came when the alien leader appeared on the battlefield. The alien was taller than any of its soldiers, its body covered in dark armor that shimmered with energy. It was a terrifying sight, but the soldier didn't flinch. He had fought too many battles, seen too many horrors to be intimidated now. This was the end, and he was going to finish it. The soldier rushed toward the alien leader, his movements fluid and precise. The two collided with a force that shook the ground beneath them. The alien swung its massive weapon, but the soldier was faster. He dodged the attack, using his enhanced agility to move behind the alien and strike at its weak points. The battle was fierce, but the soldier's strength was too much for the alien to handle. As the alien leader stumbled back, wounded, the soldier pressed forward. He landed a final, devastating blow, and the alien collapsed to the ground, defeated. The soldier stood over its fallen form, breathing heavily. For a moment, there was silence on the battlefield. The fighting had stopped. The resistance forces looked around, unsure of what to do. They had won, but at what cost? Eli made his way to the soldier, his heart heavy. He had seen the cost of victory, and it wasn't just the physical damage the soldier had taken. It was the emotional toll. The soldier had become more than a weapon, but in doing so, he had lost something essential. He had lost his humanity. The soldier looked at Eli, his eyes distant. "Is it over?" he asked, his voice empty, as if he were asking more than just about the battle. Eli nodded, but there was no joy in his response. "It's over," he said softly. The soldier turned away, his mechanical leg clicking against the ground as he walked past Eli. He had done what he was created to do, but in the process, he had become someone else. The battle was over, but the war inside him was far from finished. As the sun set on the battlefield, the soldier stood alone, looking out at the horizon. He had saved humanity, but at what cost? Was it worth it? Was he still the man who had once fought for something greater, or was he just a tool of war, nothing more than a weapon with a human soul buried beneath it? Eli stood behind him, watching the soldier struggle with the weight of his own existence. He didn't have the answers. He had created this new version of the soldier, but he couldn't fix what had been broken. The soldier had fought for humanity, but in doing so, he had lost something even more important. The soldier turned back to Eli, his face unreadable. "What now?" he asked quietly. Eli didn't know. All he knew was that the war was over, but the soldier's journey was far from complete. The world was changing, and so was the soldier. They had won the battle, but at what cost? The soldier looked out over the battlefield, his enhanced body now a symbol of humanity's strength, but also a reminder of the price they had paid. And as the last light of the day faded, he realized that he would never be the same again. He had forged his own destiny, but the path ahead was uncertain. And for the first time, the soldier allowed himself to feel something that had been buried deep inside him, the fear of what came next.